Okay, I'm gonna do a video today about the census and the data, and I want to, we all should understand how we fund our public schools and how data is shared and why we do the census. So I'm gonna push play here, and I'm just gonna do this live, y'all. Here we go.
Hi everyone! Welcome to the Analyzing Census Data in SAS Studio tutorial series. In the previous video, I created a bar chart comparing median home values across states, and I was able to do this with minimal preparations needed with the data. However, sometimes you may want to prepare or inform your data before creating a visualization or performing an analysis. For example, you may need to combine multiple tables together, filter your data, or create new columns.
Okay.
In this video, we'll create a listing report that displays the top 5 states by median household income within each geographical region. To create this report, we'll need to prepare our data. First, we'll use the query utility to combine median household income data with the geography lookup table. Then, we'll use the rank data task to rank the median household income values within each region. Finally, we'll use the list data task to create the report. If you want to follow along with me, make sure you watch the introduction video to set up your environment and tutorial data. You can find the link to it below or on the main tutorial page. Before we get started with our SAS Studio tasks, I'd like to quickly show you where the data is coming from. For our median household income values, you can find this information on data.census.gov. The table ID is B19013, and we'll be working with the data from 2018, specifically the one-year estimates for all states in the United States. In addition, we have a geography lookup table that can be found on the Census Bureau's website as an Excel file. I've already downloaded this file just to show you what it looks like, but this explains which region and division each state belongs to.
I don't know what this is. I'm not going to create a profile here. I just want to get out of here. I'll go back to where I was.
Which region and division each state belongs to.
I don't know what this is. I'm not going to create a profile here. I just want to get out of here. Back to where I was.
At this point, let's go ahead and give this code a run. Let's see what we Now, looking at the bar chart, we have a start here, but we could probably make some improvements. Right, I have one bar for each state. The height represents the median home value. That's good. But I can see that all of my state names are being overlapped with each other. I might want to expand the width of this graph. At this point, let's go ahead and give this code a run. Let's see what we Now, looking at the bar chart, we have a start here, but we could probably make some improvements. Right, I have one bar for each state. The height represents the median home value. That's good. But I can see that all of my state names are being overlapped with each other. I might want to expand the width of this graph. Let's go ahead and give this code a run. Let's see what
It's messed up right here.
Now, looking at the bar chart, we have a start here, but we could probably make some improvements. Maybe I have one bar for each state. The height of the label home value. To make these changes, I'm just going to go back to the settings side. Specifically, now we're going to the Appearance tab to make these changes. First, to change the label on my y-axis median home, I'm going to expand the Measure Axis heading. Then from the Display Label drop-down list, I will select Custom Label. In the label box, let's label this Median Home Value. Next, the title. I'll expand the title and footnote heading. And let's call the title Median Home Value. in 2018. Finally, the graph size. I'll expand the graph size heading, and for the width, let's bring that up to 10 inches, and I'll leave the height at the default 4.8 inches. Let's run it again. Let's see how our bar chart changes. This is looking a lot better now. My state names are no longer overlapping. There's more room for it to work with. I see my median home value label on my y-axis and a nice title as well. Now, you might have noticed that when I ran it the second time, next to my bar chart tab, there's actually a warning icon. If you see an icon like this, it's always a good idea to take a look at your log. So let's jump into the log tab. I see there are two warnings here, and they say that the width exceeds available space for RTF, which is like the word format, and the PDF destination setting width equal to 8 inches. So what does that mean? Well, by default in SAS Studio, our results get generated in the HTML5, RTF, and PDF results. What these warnings are saying is that for the RTF and PDF format specifically, that width of 10 was too wide, so it just set it to 8 automatically. This does not affect our results though, because on the Results tab, we are only viewing the HTML5 results. But it's always good to make sure you check your log to see if there's any warnings or errors you might want to be aware about. I'm going to go back to the Results tab, taking a look at my bar chart again. Now this time what I'd like to do is maybe plot the US median home value as a reference line in this bar chart. I don't know what that US median home value is, and it's not a part of my data, but data.census.gov makes it really easy to find that information. So in a new tab, I'll go to data.census.gov. This is a great resource to access data that the Census Bureau makes available. And what I'll do this time is in the free-form single search bar, I'm going to just type in exactly what I'm looking for, which is median home value 2018. Let's see what we get. Now previously I was looking at tables, but I actually don't even need to look at a table to get the information that I'm looking for. You'll notice at the top of the All Results page, it immediately tells me that the median housing value in 2018 was $229,700. So that was really easy for me to get. With that in mind, let's go back into SAS Studio. On the Appearance tab, let's add in that reference line. Under the Measure Axis heading, which is already expanded, I'm going to check the checkbox for Create a Reference Line and type in that value, 229,700. Let's add in a custom label as well, and I will label that as US median. Let's give it a run. So I get pretty much the same bar chart, but now I have that US median home value plotted as a reference line in green. This makes it pretty easy to see which states are above the US median home value or below it. Now let's take that a step further. Instead of plotting the US median home value as a reference line, maybe I want to filter my values based off of that. So only plot the states that have median home values exceeding the US median home value. To do this, first I'm going to clear that reference line. So I'll clear the Create a Reference Line checkbox on that Appearance tab. To filter my data, I'm going to the Data tab, and right below my input table, I'll click Filter. In the filter expression box, I will type in median home, that's the name of the column, is greater than 229,700. The syntax that is used here in the filter expression box is based off of the SAS SQL procedures where clause, just without that where keyword. If you're interested to learn more about that syntax, take a look at the tutorial notes. There is a link to the documentation there. But this is good to go for me, so I will click Apply. And let's run it again. So in my updated bar chart, I now see less states. These are the states that have median home values exceeding that $229,700. So my bar chart's looking pretty good so far, but you'll notice right now that my bars are sorted in ascending or alphabetical order by the states. Maybe instead I'd like to sort my bars by the median home value instead of by the states. Well, let's take a look at the task to see if there's any options for that. So let's take a look at the Appearance tab. And under the Category Access heading, let's see what we have. So there's an option, Reverse Tick Values. What that'll do is sort the bars in reverse or descending order by the states, not quite what we want. And then there's Show Tick Values in Data Order, so sort the bars or the states in order in which it appeared in the input table itself. But there isn't an option that lets me sort my bars by those median home values. If there is an option or setting that you're looking for that you're not finding in the task itself, what you can do is go in and modify the code that was generated by this bar chart task. If I go to the Code tab, there's that code that we want to modify. Before I go in and do that, there's one more resource I'd like to show you, and that is on the Information tab. I mentioned earlier that the bar chart task generates proc sgplot code. And if you're not very familiar with it, you want to learn more about it, that Information tab actually has a direct link to the documentation that talks about the sgplot procedure. So you might want to check that out. But for now, let's go back into the Code tab. Now the Code tab, this is a read-only copy of the code. If I want to make a modifiable copy, I can just click on Edit. This opens up a new program tab that is again modifiable, so I can make some edits to the code that was generated. So you might not be familiar with SAS code, but SAS Studio actually has a lot of features available that make it a little bit easier for you to code and has some features to help guide you. So I'd like to show you a couple of those features. First, let's say in my code, I'm not very familiar with this VBAR statement, but I want to learn more about it. What you can do, go ahead and right-click on the VBAR keyword and select Syntax Help. This Syntax Help window tells me a little bit about this VBAR statement. So the description says it creates a vertical bar chart that summarizes the values of a category variable. And I can also see the syntax. After that VBAR keyword, I list a category variable, and then after a / is where all of my options are going to go. So you might be wondering, well, what are some options that are available? Is there something that I could take advantage of to sort my bars by the median home values? Well, let's see. I'm going to place my cursor right before the semicolon on that VBAR statement. You just want to make sure you're after that / because again, we're interested in those options. When I hit the space bar, an autocomplete window opens up and shows me all the valid options for a VBAR statement. And there are a lot of options I can take advantage of here. The one that I'm interested in is the category order equals option. So I'm going to hit the C on my keyboard. It takes me right to the C's, and now you see category order equals is highlighted. Now I have the syntax help window for the category order equals option. I see that it specifies the order in which the response values, our median home values, are arranged. That's exactly what we want. So with the category order equals option highlighted in my autocomplete window, I can just hit the Enter key, and now the category order equals option is automatically added into my program, which is nice. Then autocomplete opens up again. Now I can see the valid option values for the category order equals option. Rest ASC and rest DESC. So response ascending or response descending. I'm going to single click on response descending so I can read more about it. As you can probably guess, it sorts the response values in descending order. That's exactly what I want, so this time I will double click it, and that also adds in that value to my program. So the syntax help window and the autocomplete window can guide you out and help you out as you're typing inside of a SAS program. There's one more thing I'd like to add in here, and that is a secondary title explaining the filter that was applied. So right below the title statement, I'm going to add a title to statement, and in quotes, type in the title. I'll say states exceeding US median of $229,700, and then end that statement with a semicolon. Let's give the program a run. So here is my final bar chart, again only looking at the states that exceed that US median home value of $229,700, and now it is sorted in descending order by those median home values. At this point, you may want to share this bar chart in, let's say, a PDF format, for example. Earlier, I mentioned that by default, SAS Studio generates our results in the HTML5, PDF, and RTF formats. In order to access those, there are these buttons on the Results tab to download the results as an HTML file, PDF file, and an RTF or a Word file. As an example, let me show you the PDF file. Just click on the button, open that up, and now I have the same exact bar chart, but now in a PDF file, which might make it a little bit easier to share with your colleagues. I'll go ahead and close out my PDF file, and let's save our work. I'm going to first exit out of Maximize View, bring back my navigation pane, and to save the program on the Code tab, I'll click on the Save icon. Let's save it in the Census Data Analysis folder. I will call this program Median Home Bar Sort, and click Save. Closing out of the program, let's also save a setting specified in the bar chart task. Click the Save icon here as well. And in that Census Data Analysis folder, let's call this one Median Home Bar, and click Save. Now you know how to create a bar chart using the bar chart task to visualize census data. Make sure to try out the practices in the tutorial notes. To learn how to create a stacked bar chart, check out the challenge practice. You'll even edit the code generated by the bar chart task to create a stacked bar chart where each bar equals 100%. Thanks for watching. Hi everyone, welcome to the Analyzing Census Data in SAS Studio tutorial series. In the last video, I created a listing report that displayed the top 5 states by median household income within each geographical region. In this video, I'd like to further analyze median household income values using some of the statistical tasks available in SAS Studio. First, I'll show you how to use the distribution analysis task to examine the distribution of median household income values in each region. To determine if there is a significant relationship between median household income values in region, we'll use the one-way Anova task. Finally, you'll see the correlation analysis task to examine the relationship between median household income values and other statistics, like mean hours worked per week and median monthly housing costs. For this tutorial, I will assume some knowledge of statistical tests and concepts. The focus will be more on how you can perform these statistical tests in SAS Studio and how to interpret the results. If you'd like to learn more about the concepts mentioned in this tutorial, you can take our free e-learning for the Introductory Statistics 1 Introduction to Anova, Regression, and Logistic Regression course. If you want to follow along with me, make sure you watch the introduction video to set up your environment and tutorial data. As always, you can find the link to it below or on the main tutorial page. Let's jump right in. Let's start by taking a look at the data that we'll be using. In the Census Data Analysis folder, I'm going to double-click on the state_info_combined SAS table. Along with some geography information, in this table, for each state, we have information about the median household income value, the mean hours worked per week, the total population, the median age, the median duration of their current marriage, as well as the median monthly housing costs. Now, all of these estimates can be found on data.census.gov. In the table, you'll see the one-year estimates for 2018 for all states. In addition, the geography information can be found in a geography lookup table that the Census Bureau makes available in an Excel file. I've downloaded this Excel file just to quickly show you what it looks like, but this file explains which region and division each state belongs to. If you'd like to learn more about census regions and divisions, the Census Bureau does make a PDF available explaining those. You can find the links to all of the sites that I have mentioned in the tutorial notes, which can be found in the description below or on the main tutorial page. To combine the estimates as well as the geography information into a single table, you can follow a process that's similar to what's outlined in the previous video on preparing census data. However, this was already done for you and again, all contained in the stateinfo_combined table. Using this table, I'd first like to examine the distribution of median household income values. To do this, I'll use the distribution analysis task. So in the navigation pane, I'll expand the tasks and utilities section, expand tasks, and from the statistics category, I will double click on distribution analysis. Keep in mind that all of the tasks that we mentioned in this video do require the SAS Stat product to be licensed. If you are using SAS Studio through SAS On Demand for Academics, then SAS Stat is included. I'll start by clicking on Maximize View to go ahead and hide the navigation pane. First, to select our input table on the Data tab, I'll click on Select a Table. And from the Census library, I'll select the stateinfo_combined table. And click OK. Now the analysis variables role specifies the columns whose distribution we want to analyze. Since we want to analyze the distribution of median household income values, I'll click Add Columns, select the median income column, and click OK. Moving on to the Options tab, I would like a histogram, so I'm just going to quickly verify that that option is selected. And to add some density curves to our plot, I will select the Add Normal Curve and the Add Kernel Density Estimate checkboxes. I'll also select the Add Inset Statistics checkbox so I can have some statistics included in my histogram. So I'll expand the Inset Statistics subheading, and let's include the number of observations, which is selected by default, the mean, as well as the median. All right, let's see what we have. I'll give this a run. Taking a look at our histogram, the normal curve, which is in blue, outlines a normal distribution with the same mean and variance as our input data, stateinfo_combined. The kernel density curve, which is outlined in red, outlines a smooth approximation of the distribution of our observed data. You'll notice that these two curves appear to be fairly similar, although the data is slightly right skewed. Taking a look at our statistics, you'll notice that the mean, which is roughly $62,000, is about $2,000 higher than the median, which is just under $60,000. Now I'd like to know if the distribution is different across different geographical regions. So going back to our Options tab, I'm going to take advantage of the Classification Variables role. This can be used to create separate histograms for each classification level. Because I'm interested to see if the distribution is different in each region, I'll click Add Columns and assign region to this role. Let's give it a run and take a look at the updated results. You'll now notice that we have separate histograms for each region, and each region does have a unique distribution. You'll notice that the Midwest region has a right skewed distribution. The Northeast region seems to be closer to a uniform distribution, and the South and West regions have states with extreme values. So using the distribution analysis task, I can visually compare the distribution of these median household income values, and they do seem to be quite different among the different regions. But now I'd like to know if the relationship between median household income and region is significant. To investigate this relationship, I will use the one-way Anova task. So first, let me go ahead and exit out of Maximize View. And in the Tasks and Utilities section, under Task, this time I'll expand the Linear Model section and double-click One-Way Anova. The One-Way Anova task will test and provide graphs for differences among the means of a single categorical variable, which in our case is our regions, on a single continuous dependent variable, which in our case are the median household income values. I'll click on Maximize View again to hide the navigation pane, And on the Data tab, you'll notice that census.stateinfo_combined is already listed as our input table. What happens is that the most recently used table in a task is listed as the input table by default, so we're good to go there. However, if you do need to select a table, you can always click on Select a Table to do that. Taking a look at our task roles, the dependent variable role specifies a continuous numeric column. So I'll go ahead and click on the Add a Column button, and I'll assign median income to this role. Next, the categorical variable role specifies a column with values that specify the levels of our groups. So I'll click Add a Column again here, and I'll assign region to this role. Moving on to our Options tab. By default, the one-way Anova task performs Levine's test for homogeneity of variance to test that the variances within each region are equal. This is one of the assumptions that we do need to satisfy for one-way Anova. I'll go ahead and clear a checkbox for Welch's variance weighted Anova. If the Anova assumption of equal error variances across all groups is not met, then you can select this checkbox. Moving on to the comparisons method, by default, the task will determine whether there are significant differences in the mean of the median income between each pair of regions with 2 keys adjustment, so I'll leave that as is. And moving on to plots, from the displayed plots drop-down list, I'll select selected plots. I'll go ahead and clear checkboxes for means plot and LS mean difference plot, and select a checkbox for diagnostics plot. So we just want the checkboxes for box plot and diagnostics plot. All right, let's go ahead and give this a run. There are many parts to this output. I'm just going to point out a couple of portions. Taking a look at the overall analysis of variance table, you'll notice that the p-value is 0.0228, which is less than 0.05. What this means is that the test is significant. It suggests that there are at least 2 regions where the mean of the median household income values are significantly different. We'll see which regions are significantly different a little bit later on in the output. Moving on to the Fit Diagnostics Panel, this contains a set of graphs that are commonly used to help validate the assumptions of Anova, and there are several assumptions that we do need to make sure are met. The first assumption is that the observations must be independent. We don't see appearance of repeated measures or clustering, and we can assume that the data was collected in a way to ensure independence of the observations. So the first assumption is met. The next assumption is that the errors are normally distributed. The first scatter plot on the second row of the Fit Diagnostics plot is a quantile-quantile or QQ plot. You'll notice that there is very little deviation from the reference line, so the residuals are normally distributed. We can also verify this using the first histogram on the third row of the Fit Diagnostics panel. This is our residual histogram, and this histogram displays a relatively normal distribution of the residuals, so again satisfying our second assumption. The third and last assumption is that all groups have equal error variances. And this can be verified with Levine's test for homogeneity of variance, which is a little bit later on in the output. I'll scroll down to there. Notice that Levine's test returns a p-value of 0.1542, which is greater than 0.05. Therefore, the null hypothesis of equal variances fails to be rejected. So the assumption of equal error variances across all groups is met. So all of our assumptions for one-way Anova are met. Scrolling back up to our box plots, you'll notice that the box plot indicates that the Northeast region has the highest average regional median household income, and the South region has the lowest. You can hover over any of the boxes or whiskers to display a tooltip that has some more descriptive specifics. The big question, though, is which regions have statistically significant differences in the mean. So I'm going to scroll down to the least squares mean table. In the least squares mean table, first you'll notice that each region is assigned a number. So Midwest is 1, Northeast 2, South 3, and then West 4. Taking a look at the pairwise comparisons among all regions, notice the adjusted p-value of 0.0286 between regions 2 and 3, which correspond to the Northeast and South regions. With this value being less than 0.05, it indicates that the mean of the median household income values between those two regions are significantly different. The last thing that I'd like to do is determine whether there is any sort of relationship or correlation between median household income values and the other estimates and statistics that were included, like the mean hours worked per week or the median monthly housing costs. To do this, I'll use the correlation analysis task. So first, I'll exit out of Maximize View, bring back the navigation pane, and in the Tasks and Utilities section under Tasks, this is under the Statistics category, I'll double-click on Correlation Analysis. Clicking on Maximize View again to hide the navigation pane. Again, notice that our input table is already listed as census.stateinfo_combined, so that's good to go. Moving on to our task roles, the Analysis Variables role lists the columns for which to compute correlation coefficients. So I'll go ahead and click on Add Columns. And I want to assign everything aside from median income. A quick trick is to first select mean hours worked, hold down the Shift key, and then select median monthly housing costs. This selects those two columns as well as all of the columns that are in between. And click OK. Next, the Correlate With role lists the columns with which the correlations of the analysis variables are to be computed. Because I want to determine the relationship between median household income values and the analysis variables, I'll click Add Columns and assign median income to this role. Moving on to the Options tab. Under the Plots heading, I'm going to use the Type of Plot drop-down list, and I'll select the individual scatter plots. These individual scatter plots will display the pairwise relationship between our analysis variables and median household income. Let's give this a run.
Sometimes we don't play and help you.
Taking a look at our results, the Pearson correlation coefficients table displays the strength of a linear association between median household income and the potential predictor variables. The stronger the association between these two variables, the closer the Pearson correlation coefficient value will be to either -1 or 1, depending on whether that relationship is negative or positive, respectively. You'll notice that the Pearson correlation coefficient value between median household income values and median monthly housing costs is 0.93492. This indicates a strong positive linear relationship between those two variables as compared to the other pairs. In other words, the higher the median monthly housing costs, the higher the median income. We'll use the scatter plot to make sure and verify that that relationship is linear. So let's take a look at a couple of those scatter plots that were generated. These scatter plots will provide a visual of the relationship between median household income values and the analysis variables that we selected. First, taking a look at the scatter plot for median household income and mean hours worked per week, there doesn't seem to be any significant relationship between those two. Moving on to the scatter plot for median household income values and median duration of current marriage, there does seem to be a slight negative relationship between the two. This could indicate that the longer a couple has been married, the less the median household income value. However, there is an outlier here that may have had a strong influence on this relationship. If you hover over this outlier, we can learn a little bit more about it, and we see that this corresponds to observation number 34. Based on the tooltip right now, I don't know which state this is, but we could look at the input table and locate observation number 34 to figure out which state it is. However, we will enhance the results to also include the state information in the tooltip. Before we do that, let's look at one last scatter plot. And this is a scatter plot for median household income values and median monthly housing costs. The Pearson correlation coefficient value of 0.9349 indicated a strong positive relationship between these two variables, but now looking at the scatter plot, we can verify that the relationship is indeed linear. Let's now enhance our results by adding more information to the tooltip set up here in the scatter plot, and also by sorting the Pearson correlation coefficients table. To do this, I need to modify the task generated code. So on the code tab, I'll click Edit, to open up a modifiable copy of the code. First, on the proc core statement, right before the semicolon that ends the statement, I'm going to type a blank space, and this displays the autocomplete window with some valid options for the proc core statement. I'm going to type R to highlight the rank option, and in the syntax help window, you'll notice that this option displays the ordered correlation coefficients for each variable. I do want to include this option, so I'll go ahead and hit the Enter key to include the rank option. Next, in my proc core step, I can add in an ID statement that will specify additional variables to include in the tooltip that appears in the scatter plot. So after the with statement and right before the run statement, I'm going to add in an ID statement and include the state and region columns, and then end that statement with a semicolon. Let's give it a run. Taking a look at our results, you'll now notice that the Pearson correlation coefficients table now displays the values in order from strongest to weakest in absolute value. And now let's take a look at our scatter plots. I'm going to scroll down to the scatter plot for median household income values and median duration of current marriage. Hovering over the outlier, we can now see that observation number 34 corresponds to District of Columbia. DC has a median household income value of roughly $85,000 with a median duration of current marriage at 10.7 years. Let's go ahead and save this program. Back on the Code tab, I'll click on the Save Program icon. And in the Census Data Analysis folder, I'll save this program as Median Income Correlation. And click Save. I'll go ahead and close the Median Income Correlation tab and exit out of Maximize View. You can go ahead and close out of the Correlation Analysis, One-Way Anova, Distribution Analysis, and State Info _ Combined tabs without saving the results. Now you know how to use several statistical tasks in SAS Studio to analyze census data. There are so many more statistical tasks available. If you'd like to learn about another one, try out the challenge practice in the tutorial notes. It'll walk you through the linear regression task to predict median household income values based on the mean hours worked per week. To learn about the other statistical tasks, take our free e-learning for the Introductory Statistics 1 Introduction to Anova, Regression, and Logistic Regression course. You can find the link below in the description or on the main tutorial page. Thanks for watching.
So, that's how the census is operating all across America. I mean, we have people that work within the states, they work for the federal government, they work for the state, they work for the county, but they determine the level of resources that are allocated for any particular area, and for people to just blatantly put resources wherever they choose to, not based on the number of people that are actually producing those resources. You see that Nevada had to put their taxation system out there so that they were going to talk about how they're going to fund the schools, because federal money is just not free shopping money. It's just not what it is. And in America, until we all are heard, until all of our voices are heard, then we're not heard. And the word e-privilege, out of many, there is one. What does it really mean? What does it really say? It's not saying anything except for we the people. And I am a part of the people. So therefore, people just can't keep on moving forward, not addressing the real needs. Here in Clark County, there's a real issue in the harbor and the haven. And Nevada, for their assessment from the federal government, is that they need intervention. What is intervention? That means they have to select a provider to come in and support them in providing services to the county and helping them coordinate their services through the state. And they also, that's the Part B money and the Part C money. For special education, as failure is the only option here, I'm just concerned because this is America and we're producing what? Wake up, America. Because each one of us have the ability to share our concept ideals as we've lived, and we have something to share. What are you sharing? I'm just waiting for people to catch up. In America, it is just whatever. It's us. And we are responsible for whatever it is we're responsible for. We the people. Every state has to produce a semblance of success. Here in Nevada, we know that we're very successful in what? Entertainment, boo. And it's all about entertainment. But what about the people who live here? I'm concerned. You should be too. When I got here, the African American children were on the bottom with the Native American children. And hell, the Native American children didn't even have any of those, high school diplomas. What happened? Every year there's something so bad in the community that the people are just not engaged, right? No, but we're spending money every day. People are paying their salaries. They're not suffering. So why are we suffering? We're suffering by choice. We wait and we allow them to tell us what's going on when every school has its own autonomy to discuss with the parents what's going on. The children and the parents and the teachers discuss what's going on. Talk about what success looks like. Hell, they're still talking about what does success look like? What do you want your high school student to do? What should you want your high school student to do if they're forced by law to participate and engage in society? Who are we as the people? I'm concerned. I'm so concerned because every time I log onto my computer and I use this program, I have to figure out how to log on because it made me a new account that doesn't have any of the services what you paid for. And believe me, when you pay, you're just paying for privilege of access. It's the gateway. And the gateway is real. But just like Snoop, I can say I'm living my best life. And the real deal is I do have time to deal with you. So freedom has never been free. We can look back and understand that Malcolm and Martin and Medgar and all those who were once here. Nipsey, recently, he had children. Kobe, he was good at what he did. Do you understand? When you're good at what you do, then you're good at what you do. When you're out to make money, then you make money. I'm out to awaken people, and I hope that in 2022 you're willing to wake up. You're understanding that we all must play this game. The game is called politics. And if you would like to win, then you have to participate in the race. Who's in the race? I think that you're easily identified by, well, hell, they see you coming. But what they don't expect to do is to listen to you. In the word is e purpose unum. Out of many, there's one. But out of one, there may be none. But what do you plan to do in 22? I mean, you lived this long and you've made it. So is it going to be just the card parties and running around chasing that little ball on the golf course as if it brings a level of intelligence to you? Because I don't see it. A skill is a skill, but unless your name is Tiger Boo, you ain't making that kind of money. And is it the money anyway? Because it just may not be the money. Pimping ain't easy, but goddamn, I've said they have mastered it. We are the harvest. And they harvest us every day. They simply just make the money. And even in my little podcast and my choice to stream and my choices in life, my children have been successful. They're not in the penitentiary. They never even spent one day in the juvenile. My boys just graduated from school, and then I sent them off to college. But, hey, that was just a burden more than what they could carry. And they didn't finish, but neither did I. But what was the irrelevance in completing college? But understand when you pay for access, and you get access because I paid for a program called Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, certified whatever. Somebody put some shit together on me and charged me $15,000, I believe it was. But guess what? They got all of that money because I had served as a VISTA. That would be a volunteer in service for America through the Corporation of National Community Service. I would encourage every human in America to participate in volunteering for your local community. You just can't even imagine what citizenship really truly means unless you do that volunteer spot. You get me, boo? And that's just real. It's the corporation. I'm gonna take you to the website because I don't think you'll believe me, because most people don't even understand. We have to share the screen, so I'm gonna just share the screen for a second. I'm gonna go here and share that, and then I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna go to here. There it is right there. The Corporation for National Community Service. Let me just tell you, because see, Nevada has this grant here too. And you know, if you type Nevada here, EVADA, and see what's coming up. Let's just see what comes up. So these are federal grants. You hear me? Bureau of Land Management, Cultural, whatever. Bureau, and then keep on going down. Bureau of Land Management, Recreation, and Visitor Services. Now this is a grant, so you could actually volunteer in here to be a person that they're looking for. And look, oh, this is the funding that they have. And this is who's going to be eligible for it. Cities, townships, whatever. But this is, if someone wanted to do it, I guess. Let's see. They have other supporting documents, but there's a narrative. I wonder what that looks like. And there's another one. But we could just go back, because let's just understand that in America, there's something that, it's an Excel document that popped up. I don't know. But anyways, we need to get out of here, because we just need to understand how this really works, you know? Because you need to understand how America really works. Look, Trafficking Victims Assistance Program. That was a grant that was forecasted in December of 2021. But look, what is this one? They have the closing dates, and a lot of these are not closed yet. You see, they're just brand new grants, and people are busy writing these grants. And let's see, the American Rescue Plan, Indigenous Communities Notice of Funding, Historic Preservation Fund, Annual State Historic Preservation Grants Office. There's one. And let's see what else is here. The American Rescue Plan Act, Statewide Planning and Research and Networks. Let's look at that one. It posted in July of 21. It closes in September 30th, 2022. But let's look at what it does. Okay. Here we go. What should we do here? We should just try to select it and read it. And let's just read it so we don't have to be busy.
EVA-HPQ-RPRN-2021-2006-986 FY 2021 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA Statewide Planning, Research, and Networks Department of Commerce. Back link. Apply, subscribe. Synopsis version history related documents package. Print synopsis details. General information document type. Grants notice. Funding opportunity number. EVA-HPQ-RPRN-2021-2006-986. Funding opportunity title. FY 2021 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA Statewide Planning, Research, and networks. Opportunity category, discretionary. Opportunity category explanation. Funding instrument type, cooperative agreement grant category of funding activity. Other, see text field entitled Explanation of Other category of funding activity for clarification. Category explanation. Economic development, research, networks, communities of practice. Expected number of awards, 20. See FDA number S 11.307, Economic Adjustment Assistance. Cost sharing or matching requirement, yes. Version, Synopsis 7. Post date, July 22nd, 2021. Last updated date, November 12th, 2021. Original closing date for applications, October 31st, 2021. Current closing date for applications, September 30th, 2022. Archive date, October 30th, 2022. Estimated total program funding, $31 million. Award ceiling, $6 million. Award floor, $200,000. Eligibility. Eligible applicants. Others, see text field entitled Additional Information on Eligibility for clarification. Additional information on eligibility pursuant to Section 3.4 of PWEDA 42 U.S.C. Paragraph 3122 4A and 13 CFR Paragraph 300.3, eligible recipient. Eligible applicants under the EAA program include a N.I. district organization of an EDA designated Economic Development District, EDD, 2. Indian tribe or consortium of Indian tribes, 3. State, county, city, or other political subdivision of a state, including a special purpose unit of a state or local government engaged in economic or infrastructure development activities, or a consortium of political subdivisions, IV. Institution of higher education or a consortium of institutions of higher education, or V. Public or private non-profit organization or association acting in cooperation with officials of a general purpose political subdivision of a state unless EDA waives the cooperation requirement. For statewide planning grants, eligible applicants are limited to the governor's office, or equivalent, of a state, who may designate an eligible applicant type described above to apply for and administer the award. Under Section 310 of PWEDA, the term state includes the 50 states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of Palau. Under its EAA program, EDA is not authorized to provide grants or cooperative agreements to individuals or to for-profit entities. Requests from such entities will not be considered for funding. Additional information. Agency name, Department of Commerce. Description: the ARPA statewide planning, research, and networks NOFO is part of EDA's multi-phase effort to respond to the coronavirus pandemic as directed by the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Specifically, this NOFO seeks to build regional economies for the future through two primary avenues: A. Statewide planning, and B. Research and networks. Subject to the availability of funds, awards made under this NOFO will help develop coordinated statewide plans for economic development and data, tools, and institutional capacity to evaluate and scale evidence-based economic development efforts, including through communities of practice and provision of technical assistance among existing and new EDA grantees. While EDA encourages eligible applicants to submit their applications as soon as possible, EDA strongly advises eligible applicants to submit completed applications no later than October 31st, 2021 so that EDA can review and process the application in time to achieve the objectives of the grant program. Submission by October 31st, 2021 is not a guarantee of funding. Any award is subject to the availability of funds. See Section E of this NOFL regarding NEDA's review process. For statewide planning grants, states must accept or reject the grant within 45 days of the date of transmission from EDA of an invitation letter. Link to additional information: www.eda.gov. Grantor contact information. If you have difficulty accessing the full announcement electronically, please contact. For applicants interested in the research component, research@eda.gov. For applicants interested in the networks component, networks@eda.gov. For applicants interested in the statewide planning component, reach out to your EDA regional office with questions.
Let's see if we're sharing the screen. I gotta check. Never know. Goodness. I'm going to hear my channel. Yeah, no. I don't know if we're sharing or not. Let me see. Yes, we are sharing. Okay, here we are. And this is EDA. Let's see. We all need to understand, there's just parts of the government that we may never ever understand how it works. But as citizens, the obligation for our people is to understand how this works. And let's see. Governor's Office of Economic Development. Okay. Western Nevada Development District. Let's see. University. State of Nevada Development Corporation. And let's just look at here. Let's check it, this one. Oh, well, we're going somewhere else. Empowering Success. Let's see. Programs. I hope I'm still sharing. Workforce development. Let's just look at that, because are we included in the pathways? Okay. Well, let's just select it all and let's just see what we're going to hear. Start speaking.
Skip to main content. Enable accessibility for visually impaired. Open the accessibility menu. Why Nevada? Nevada Advantage Regions Data Portal White Papers. Key Industries, Incentives, Opportunity Zones, Climate Strategy Programs, Workforce Development, Rural Community and Economic Development, Innovation-Based Economic Development, International Trade, Procurement Assistance and Outreach. Nevada Film Office. Emerging Small Business. Southern Envy Infrastructure Development Group. Recovery and Resilience Plan. About GOED Board Notices and Agendas, Reports and Studies, State Plan Policy Papers, Newsroom Press Releases, Newsletters, GOED Annual Reports. Contact us. Staff Directory, Public Information Requests, Workforce Development. Learn and Learn Advanced Career Pathways. LEAP. As the standard template for career pathway development in Nevada, LEAP integrates education, government and industry in a standardized process to ensure that workers have the skills they need to succeed in both the short and long term. In the new Nevada, that education institutions know what they need to teach, and that companies have a qualified workforce. LEAP is designed to be a dynamic and responsive framework. Read more about LEAP Workforce Innovations for the new Nevada. One of the opportunities for companies looking to expand or locate their business operation in Nevada is the state's ready and willing workforce, as well as Nevada's commitment to create training programs that will equip workers with the skills needed by our employers. WIN represents the first workforce development training program of its kind in Nevada, and is a commitment to businesses to arm them with the skilled employees that they need. The program is administered by GOED in coordination with Nevada System of Higher Education, the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovations, the Department of Employment, Training and Rehabilitation, and the Nevada Department of Education. Since its inception, WIN has made more than $11 million in strategic investments to enable accelerated on-ramps to high-skill and high-wage jobs. Read more about WIN Nevada Skills Match in an effort to help Nevadans who are unemployed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED, and the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation, OWIN, are using CARES Act funding to make the MC Skills Match tool available for those seeking to get back into the job market. The Nevada Skills Match tool is free and available at nv.mcskills.com. It is not a job board, but it can be used to connect individuals to jobs that meet their qualifications. The Skills Match software platform will help people identify which employment skills they have and help them identify which skills they need to obtain to become more employable in today's job market. Skills Match Training, January 2021 Skills Match Training, June 2021 Nevada Labor Supply Certification. The Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development commissioned a labor supply study to measure the amount.
Okay, I had to figure out how to get that one stopped. Let me just go back here. I share my screen again. So we should, oh no, I don't see the PDF open. Preview, there we go. Let's just stop the share. Stop the share. Just... I'm gonna get here. When you're not a part of the planning process, it's just real, isn't it? You find out stuff along the pathway. Let me select it all. And get in here first. I don't think I'm here yet. Not. Edit. Here we go. Here we go.
Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development. The future beyond the pandemic. Nevada's plans for recovery and resilience prepared by SRI International, in collaboration with RCG Economics and Brookings Mountain West. SRI International, registered sign, December 2020. Authors. This report was researched and written by Roland Stephen and J.R. Sullivan at the Center for Innovation Strategy and Policy, SRI International. Significant contributions were provided by John Restrepo and Hubert Hansen of RCG Economics, and William Brown, David Damore, and Robert Lang of Brookings Mountain West. The authors would like to acknowledge support provided by Bob Potts, Michael Brown, and the staff of Nevada's state government. Note this report was developed by SRI International, based on research funded by the Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED. The findings, conclusions, and any errors in the report are the sole responsibility of the authors. SRI International is a registered trademark. Contents: Executive Summary 01 Overview 04 Economic Forecast 14 Priority Areas for Intervention 20 Visionary Strategies for a Changing State 41 Capabilities to Realize the Vision 48 Appendix of 50 Appendix B 52 Appendix 154 Appendix 566 Notes Photo courtesy of Mark Sanchez and BLM Nevada Flickr. SRI International, registered sign, Executive Summary Nevada's Plans for Recovery and Resilience photo courtesy of VDRAvenueL.com/Flickr. Vision: a diverse, innovative, and sustainable economy mission. Good jobs today, better jobs tomorrow. Executive Summary Priority Areas for Immediate Intervention. GOED has targeted a variety of coordination, information, and leadership challenges in order to accelerate immediate recovery. Resources for people and business support. And SRI International, registered sign, Businesses Workforce for the Next Economy. New Technology Businesses Expansion Data and Integrated Planning for Decision Making. Executive Summary Visionary Strategies. SRI International, registered sign, and initiatives. GOED works with stakeholders to pursue visionary policies that set Nevada apart for the future. Regionally designed industrial clusters. 1. Develop new approaches to cluster identification and development. 2. Integrate into regional and global value chains. Enable further diversification of Southern Nevada's economy. Statewide integration and connectivity. 1. Integrate and expand capabilities between Northern and Southern Nevada. 2. Expand broadband accessibility. 3. SRI International, registered sign, technology-driven development. 1. Establish Southern Nevada as a world data hub to recruit automation and digital technologies firms. 3. Enable technology-based entrepreneurship, responsible and sustainable growth. 1. Lead the global development of energy storage supply chains. 2. Transition to a low-carbon, low-emission economy. 3. Transition to a water-wise economy. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. Comprehensive placemaking. 1. Remove barriers to an increased healthcare access across Nevada. 2. Encourage purposeful residential zoning and development. 3. Increase engagement with outdoors for business and leisure. 4. Support entrepreneurship in digital arts and esports. 1. Executive Summary. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. Capabilities. To realize the vision, Nevada will need to build or rebuild key financial and institutional capabilities and develop realistic statutory actions. Fund the State Infrastructure Bank. Establish a sovereign wealth fund. Establish the Nevada Innovation Fund. 2. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. Establish an office for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Grow Nevada's community banking network. Reinvent Nevada's workforce institutions. Modernize public policy and governance. 3. Executive Summary. Nevada's Assets, Innovation Ecosystem and Economy. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. In 2018, SRI International conducted a statewide assessment of Nevada's assets, examining those within the domains of the innovation ecosystem, economy, physical infrastructure, quality of life, governance, and natural resources. 1. Executive Summary. Nevada's Assets, Physical Infrastructure. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 2. Executive Summary. Nevada's Assets, Quality of Life. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 3. Executive Summary. Nevada's Assets, Governance. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 4. Executive Summary. Nevada's Assets, Natural Resources. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 5. Executive Summary. SWOT Analysis Strengths. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. The SWOT analysis highlights sources of strength and weakness that may be addressed, opportunities to be realized, and dangers and difficulties to be avoided. 6. Executive Summary. SWOT Analysis Weaknesses. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 7. Executive Summary. SWOT Analysis Opportunities and Threats. SRI International, registered sign. SRI International, registered sign. 8. SRI International, registered sign. Nevada's Plan for Recovery and Resilience Overview. The Future Beyond the Pandemic. Photo courtesy of Bob Wick. BLM Flickr Overview. The report that follows contains the following components: Black Small Square, an economic forecast from RCG Economics on the situation expected for Nevada, GDP and employment, in the fall of 2021, subject to all the present uncertainties faced by Nevada and the country as a whole. Black Small Square, a series of immediate actions, in which GOED plays a leadership role, to shelter and prepare for recovery key components of Nevada's economy. The particular focus is on Main Street and small and medium-sized businesses. Black Small Square, a set of visionary strategies, firmly grounded in Nevada's underlying assets, that will accelerate the diversification of the state's economy and the transition towards technology-intensive and skill-intensive employment. black small square, an inventory of necessary capabilities that must be developed or upgraded in order to realize the vision of a diversified, innovative, and sustainable economy. The report constitutes an agenda for the whole state, urban and rural, for which GOED plays a critical coordinating role. However, GOED operates only as a partner with other stakeholders, within each region and across the state. As the SWOT analysis above suggests, policy fragmentation is N1. SRI International, registered sign, enduring challenge for Nevada. The plan is designed to address this challenge directly by providing a high-level agenda that will coordinate the actions of a broad set of partners, public and private. Over the last 10 years, Nevada has made significant strides in recovering from the Great Recession of the late 2000s, exceeding expectations and growing new industries that provide opportunities for all Nevadans. This is in no small part due to the statewide Economic Development Strategic Plan released in 2011, Moving Nevada Forward, a plan for excellence in economic development, and the supporting 2011 assessment Unify, Regionalize, Diversify, and Economic Development Agenda for Nevada, both of which aim to modernize the state's approach to economic development and lift it out of the Great Recession. Under the direction of this plan and the leadership of the Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED, Nevada has made significant progress in diversifying its economy. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has put an extraordinary strain on public health and economic systems in Nevada and around the world, and brought about another recession. Once again, Nevada is uniquely exposed. The state's economy is historically pro-cyclical, and the impact of the pandemic on travel and hospitality worsens this exposure. While recommendations for social distancing and stay-at-home orders have been highly effective at limiting the spread of the virus and saving lives, the impact on consumer spending has been severe. In particular, the leisure and hospitality industries have experienced unprecedented contraction, with most resorts and venues closed for many weeks, and workers facing prolonged uncertainty. The reality is that some of Nevada's workers will not return to the same job that they had before the COVID-19 pandemic, either because of business closure, lack of customers, or drop in demand for certain industries. Small and medium-sized businesses have been especially hard hit, and their losses will delay a strong recovery. On the other hand, other industry sectors will see growth as Nevada and the nation recover from the economic impact. Economic activity over the next 18 to 24 months will require close collaboration between the state's employers and state and local government to ensure that the gradual lifting of pandemic restrictions does not lead to an uncontrolled increase in COVID-19 cases. In addition, state and local leaders must understand the challenges the state will face in the medium term. As with the Great Recession, consumer confidence, which sustains travel, hospitality, and entertainment, will be slow to return no matter what political leaders say. Fostering this confidence will require a visible change in business practices. Nevada needs an economic Dunkirk. Economic development initiatives and workforce programs must rescue businesses and workers immediately by mobilizing all available state and private sector resources. In order to support this reopening, GOED will work with stakeholders, elected officials, business organizations, workers, and employers to target immediate recovery and long-term resilience. As Nevada's leaders begin to reopen the state's economy, GOED's actions should serve the immediate needs of business in order to accelerate the reopening in line with the public health response. At the same time, GOED will start to map key changes for the future for which business will need to be prepared. 2. SRI International, registered sign. In short, GOED will target immediate recovery and long-term resilience. This plan, along with immediate and long-term efforts to recover and reimagine Nevada's economy, will be completed through collaborative efforts between state and local leaders, stakeholders from the business community, higher education, and workers. Importantly, with an ongoing pandemic, There can be no return to normal or economic recovery without a public health recovery. Immediate recovery. The reopening will be driven by the reasonable urgency of businesses trying to get back on their feet. A variety of coordination, information, and leadership challenges are being addressed to make it as fast and smooth as possible, and GOED has a critical role to play in meeting these challenges. Long-term resilience. Once reopening has occurred, the new normal will be different. State and local government has a special responsibility to support business under these changed conditions, as well as a responsibility to design and pursue policies that set Nevada apart for the medium term. 3. Nevada's plan for recovery and resilience economic forecast. The future beyond the pandemic photo courtesy of Trevor Beck's in Flickr economic forecast. The plan that follows is grounded in a high-level 12 to 24-month economic and fiscal analysis and projection for the state of Nevada and its 2 metropolitan statistical areas, MSAs, based on 3 economic fiscal scenarios and projections: best, most likely, and worst case. Tables depicting these projections not included below are made available in Appendix 500. Several datasets were utilized to generate the model's results, including black small square total employment, black small square initial unemployment claims, black small square visitor volume, black small square taxable retail sales, black small square U3 headline unemployment rate and workforce participation rate, black small square sales and use tax collections, black small square aggregation of other relevant tax revenues. Results. In this section, RCG Economics presents and discusses its forecast results for the study's selected indicators. The discussion here is also focused on how the forecasts relate to the assumptions used for in their formulation, assumptions outlined below. For a deeper discussion of these assumptions and how the forecasts were produced, please see methodology. The indicators discussed in this section relate to black small square gross domestic product GDP, black small square employment, black small square unemployment, black small square visitor volume, black small square taxable sales, black small square property tax, black small square gaming tax, black small square room tax, black small square sales and use tax, black small square consolidated tax, black small square modified business tax, black small square marijuana excise taxes. RCG has developed 3 forecast scenarios for each indicator. They are listed below, based on RCG's research. Additionally, the study discusses and compares the forecast results against a no-pandemic scenario, a hypothetical forecast that assumes that the COVID-19 pandemic did not occur, black small square no pandemic, black small square worst case, black small square most likely case, black small square best case GDP total GDP. The most likely scenario of RCG's Nevada GDP model is based on a 12.5% decline in Q2 2020 compared to Q1 2020. This large drop is not surprising considering that Nevada has been hit hard by the pandemic compared to most other states because of its largely tourism-driven economy, one especially the Las Vegas MSA. The statewide economic lockdown in the early months of the pandemic especially affected the tourism industry, about 23% of the state's economy too. Seasonally adjusted jobs in the industry dropped by 43%, or by 152,800 jobs from 356,400 to 203,600 between April 2019 and April 2020 as a result of the lockdown that began on March 17th. By June, the industry had regained 90,200 of the jobs lost in April. 5. The COVID-19 pandemic severely impacts GDP growth in Nevada. Figure 1, Nevada real GDP forecasts, by scenario, 2014 to 2021. Source, RCG Economics and U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. $200, $190, $180, $170, $160, $150, $140. Actual no pandemic best case, minus 0.93%, most likely, minus 4.83%, worst case, minus 13.20%, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. Note: data are in 2020 US dollars. The solid blue line, actual, represents historical GDP data from Q1 2014 to Q2 2020. The dotted dark blue line provides the results of the author's no pandemic scenario, a forecast that assumes that the pandemic had never occurred. The dotted light blue line provides the results from the study's most likely case scenario, the most likely outcome based on the author's research. The dotted green line represents the best case scenario. In this case, the factors included in the model generally see relatively optimistic outcomes. The dotted red line shows the worst case scenario, in which the model's factors were given relatively poor outcomes. Data in parentheses represents the forecasted change in GDP from the expected GDP under the no pandemic scenario in Q4 2021. Forecasted GDP change by sector can be found in Table 1. In the most likely scenario, by the end of 2021, it is expected that the state's GDP will be $177.6 billion in 2020 dollars, or 4.8% less than what it hypothetically would have been had the pandemic not occurred. However, in the worst case, it is projected that Nevada GDP could fall to as low as $162 billion, similar to the state's GDP in Q2 2017. This represents a 13.2% loss in GDP compared to the no pandemic scenario. Such a drop in GDP would significantly impact the state's economy. It would potentially take years, possibly a decade, 3 or more, for the economy to return to its pre-pandemic growth path. On the other hand, the best-case scenario projects that the pandemic does not ravage the state's economy. In this scenario, state GDP in Q4 2021 is projected to be $185 billion, or only 0.9% below the no-pandemic scenario. In this case, Nevada's economy would be able to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic in a relatively short period of time. For the best-case scenario to actually occur, Nevada, like other states, would require the federal government to provide an additional tranche of virus-related financial relief, including continued and substantive unemployment benefits to workers, direct aid to states and local governments, 6 Nevada GDP in billions, additional Paycheck Protection Program dollars to small businesses and, at some point, large-scale infrastructure investments. For this would require the federal government to add several $trillion to the national debt, but would likely protect the U.S. economy from a continued free-fall 5 and accelerate its recovery 6 from possibly decades to a few years. Such a scenario would also require the severity of COVID-19 in fall and winter 2020 to remain constant relative to the summer months. This will allow governments to continue to reopen the economy more fully and safely and lessen consumer fears and uncertainty about leaving their homes and self-quarantining. However, based on the experiences of New England in early 2020 and southern Brazil in mid-2020, this is not a given. The worst-case scenario for the state assumes a series of negative events to happen. First, COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths in the state would increase, such that the Las Vegas metropolitan area would potentially look like New York City in March 2020, almost overwhelmed by infections. This would likely trigger a second lockdown. It is suspected that this would also heighten fears relative to COVID-19 and lead to higher levels of sheltering in place, compounding the effects of a potential lockdown. The worst-case scenario also assumes a continued deadlock on Capitol Hill and no further enhanced federal unemployment insurance benefits to workers. The continued absence of these benefits would represent a significant loss of personal income and, therefore, Potential GDP.7 on the positive side, a potential political stalemate of this order would be unlikely, even in an election year, should COVID-19 deaths spike nationwide. Other factors, such as the Paycheck Protection Program, were included in the scenario assumptions and are described in greater detail in the methodology section. In the most likely scenario, it is assumed that Q4 2020 will experience a minor surge in COVID-19 deaths. In this case, Nevada will probably return to Governor Sisolak's Phase 1 guidelines for 3 months but not experience a full lockdown, also referred to as Phase 0. It is assumed that the preference by a large share of Nevada residents to shelter in place will remain relatively unchanged compared to summer 2020 levels and will again decline further in spring 2021. This also assumes that the COVID-19 vaccine will be widely manufactured and distributed at an affordable price by the middle of 2021. Should the most likely scenario evolve, the economic forecast for Nevada will look a lot more like the best-case scenario than the worst-case scenario. Forecasts for the MSAs have not been included in this analysis because the Nevada sub-state data for the most recent year appear to have problems. The Reno-Sparks MSA shows negative growth, which does not appear accurate. According to GOED, the issue stemmed from certain accounts being recorded as located in the Las Vegas MSA, while the activity actually took place in the Reno-Sparks MSA. Sector GDP. In terms of GDP by sector, a range of various outcomes was found that can be seen in the following tables. Accommodation and food services shows the widest possible range of outcomes at the end of 2021, from 3.2% less than the no-pandemic scenario in the best case to 37.3% less than the worst case. The most likely scenario shows a 15.7% change. Table 1 provides the forecasted change for selected sectors of Nevada's economy based upon the expected growth under the no-pandemic scenario. As can be seen, though accommodation and food services experiences the largest variation in possible outcomes, arts, entertainment, and recreation, which represents a significant portion of Nevada's economy, also demonstrates high levels of variation between the best and worst cases. 7. The most likely scenario forecasts a moderate reduction in most sectors, but sharp contractions remain for Nevada's dominant sectors. Table 1, forecasted change in sector GDP in Q4 2021 compared to expected growth under no pandemic scenario. Source: RCG Economics. Sector best case, most likely worst case: accommodation and food services, arts, entertainment, and recreation, construction, healthcare, and social assistance, professional, scientific, and technical services. Total GDP taxable sales minus 3.2%, minus 4.3%, minus 0.3%, minus 1.2%, minus 0.7%, minus 0.9%, minus 15.7%, minus 37.3%, minus 20.4%, minus 46.3%, minus 1.3%, minus 3.7%, minus 5.9%, minus 15.3%, minus 3.8%, minus 10.0%, minus 4.8%, minus 13.2%. For taxable sales, the three geographies analyzed show similar outcomes at the end of 2021. See Table 2. Statewide, the worst-case forecast shows a drop in taxable sales of about 18%, worse than the drop in Washoe County, 3.6%, but not as severe as the drop in Clark County, 25.4%. In the most likely scenario, however, the drops are much less severe for Nevada, 6.6%, Clark County, 10.1%, and Washoe County, 1.4%, though still notable, particularly for Clark County. In the best case, neither Nevada, Clark County, nor Washoe County experience a drop in taxable sales greater than 2.1%. Washoe County's reduced dependence on tourism and entertainment softens the comparative impact of the pandemic on the region's taxable sales. Table 2, forecasted change in taxable sales in Q4 2021 compared to expected taxable sales under no pandemic scenario. Source: RCG Economics. Geography: best case, most likely, worst case: Nevada, Clark County, NV, Washoe County, NV. Employment: -1.4%, -2.0%, -0.3%, -6.6%, -10.1%, -1.4%, -17.9%, -25.4%, -3.6%. The results for employment show outcomes for 2021 that look much like those for taxable sales. In this case, the Las Vegas MSA would fare worse than the Reno-Sparks MSA in each case. In the worst-case scenario, the state would experience a 14.7% decline relative to the no-pandemic case. The Las Vegas MSA would see an 18.0% drop and the Reno-Sparks MSA an 11.6% drop. In the most likely scenario, the regions ranged from a drop of 4.4% to 7.0%. Table 3 below provides an overview of the changes in employment for each of the three geographies. 8. Forecasted changes in employment demonstrate the comparative resiliency of northern Nevada's economy compared to other regions of the state. Table 3. Forecasted change in employment in Q4 2021 compared to expected employment under no pandemic scenario. Source: RCG Economics. Geography: best case, most likely, worst case: Nevada, Las Vegas MSA, Reno-Sparks MSA. Headline: unemployment rate -1.1%, -5.7%, -1.4%, -7.0%, -0.9%, -4.4%, -14.7%, -17.9%, -11.6%. With respect to the unemployment rates, the limitations of the model are more visible. However, the results still provide a reasonable look at the relative effects of the possible outcomes. While the no-pandemic and best-case scenarios show extremely low unemployment rates of around 3.5% for Nevada, the most likely case shows that unemployment is expected to be about 1 to 1.5 points higher. Figure 2. The worst-case unemployment rates range between 6.0% for the Reno-Sparks MSA to 15.1% for the Las Vegas MSA. Nevada's unemployment rate varies drastically based upon the scenario. Figure 2. Forecasted Nevada unemployment rate. Source: RCG Economics. Note: data in parentheses represent the forecasted unemployment rate in Q4 2021. 35%, 30%, 25%, 20%, 15%, 10%, 5%, 0%, 2014, 2015, actual 2016, 2017, 2018, worst case, 13.14%, most likely, 4.73%, best case, 3.71%, no pandemic, 3.57%, 2019, 2020, 2021 unemployment claims. Initial unemployment claims for Nevada in the worst case, about 120,800, are close to 3 times higher than in the best case, about 47,300, while the most likely case, about 63,700, is only 9. Marginally worse than the best case. Relative to continuing claims, the results look fairly reasonable. The best case estimates monthly average claims of around 27,600, while the most likely case is about 3 times higher, about 103,900. Continuing claims for the worst case are about 10 times greater, about 267,500, than in the best case. The impact of the pandemic will likely continue to suppress statewide employment through the end of 2021. Table 4. Forecasted change in initial and continuing unemployment claims in Q4 2021 compared to expected claims under no pandemic scenario. Source: RCG Economics. Nevada initial unemployment claims plus 3,250 plus 63,700 plus 76,800. Nevada continuing unemployment claims plus 18,200 plus 94,500 plus 258,100. Visitor volume estimates show a significant hit to visitor volume in every scenario. The best case scenario would be least impacted by the pandemic, experiencing a 7.0% hit to visitation compared to the no-pandemic scenario. The most likely scenario sees a drop of 32.7%, while the worst case suggests a 71.5% drop. This is plausible considering that visitation dropped 99.0% year-over-year in April during lockdown. Methodology in this section, medical and economic background information about COVID-19 is discussed. Certain biological traits of this virus directly affect the inputs of the economic analysis herein and are, therefore, important to be discussed in some detail. Novel coronavirus and economic shutdown. On December 31, 2019, Chinese authorities informed the World Health Organization, WHO, of an outbreak of pneumonia of unknown origin in Wuhan, Hubei Province. 9 In March 2020, the WHO concluded that the rapidity and breadth of the spread of this disease constituted a global pandemic. 10 This disease is named COVID-19 based on established naming conventions. It is caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, a novel coronavirus. 11 As of July 2020, it appears that the newer, more virulent strain of SARS-CoV-2 has replaced the original virus and become the dominant strain circulating around the world. 12 Following the WHO's declaration of the pandemic, as well as the closure of several school districts across the country in the preceding days, the economic dominoes immediately started falling. The result was an economic downturn without precedent in modern times. 14 In the United States, the private sector initiated a series of events that quickly escalated into state-level shutdown orders. States all over the country began shutting down non-essential businesses. 15 On March 19, California became the first to issue a statewide shutdown order. 16 In Nevada, on March 10, a day before the WHO's declaration, MGM Resorts International, MGM, announced that it would be shutting down their strip buffets within days. 17 A few days later, on March 15, MGM also announced that it would be shutting down all of its Las Vegas properties on best case, most likely worst case 10. March 17.18 On March 17, Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak announced the closure of all non-essential businesses, including hotel, casino, resorts. 19 The governor extended these closures and issued a stay-at-home order on April 1.208 timeline of major governmental declarations relevant to Nevada COVID-19 policy, according to the Nevada Independent 21 and Nevada Health Response 22, as well as other sources where noted, is provided in the appendix. Information on SARS-CoV-2. There is building evidence that COVID-19 may be a vascular disease with respiratory symptoms rather than a respiratory disease. 23 This helps explain why the disease can cause widespread blood clotting as well as damage in other parts of the body. 24 According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the virus is mainly spread via the exchange of contaminated respiratory droplets in close quarters. 25 Furthermore, the WHO has stated that the virus appears to be airborne, meaning that it can linger in small droplets over long periods and still infect people. 26 Additionally, Dr. Roger Shapiro of the CDC and Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health said that the virus is easier to spread indoors than outdoors. 27 Infections appear to be driven by people showing mild, 28 unnoticed symptoms, 29 which include the majority of those infected. 30 Additionally, they may be contagious prior to showing symptoms. 31 One major means of virus spread appears to be through superspreader events. According to Scientific American, between 10 and 20% of infected people are responsible for 80% of the coronavirus's spread. 32 mortality rates published thus far compare deaths to confirmed cases, but this does not produce precise measurements of real mortality rates because it is unknown how many people have actually been infected, as most cases are mild and do not require medical attention. However, it is clear that older people are at a vastly higher risk of death than younger people. The CDC reported that 8 out of 10 deaths related to COVID-19 occur in people aged 65 years and older. Additionally, the CDC has also found that the rate of hospitalizations of those aged 85 plus is more than 150 times greater than for the least hospitalized age group, 5 to 17-year-olds. It is possible that recovery from COVID-19 only confers partial immunity or no immunity at all, meaning that someone can be reinfected with the disease after some period. 34 Additionally, there may be lifelong complications from secondary effects of COVID-19. These possibilities have helped stoke fears regarding the virus, even given the apparent relatively low mortality rate. 36 Despite the low fatality risks, it is important to note that the coronavirus is still dangerous, especially to older people, in part because we know so little about it. What we do know, however, is that the COVID-19 pandemic is already the fourth deadliest event in U.S. history compared to wars and previous pandemics. These fears at an individual level can be understood by a well-known branch of economic theory. Cumulative prospect theory predicts that people tend to overweight probabilities associated with unlikely negative outcomes. As a result, many people who face a small risk of death from COVID-19 assign a greater subjective assessment of their health risk. The same theory is applicable to financial risks as well, which helps to explain some of the backlash to the state-level shutdown orders. 11. Exaggerated fears of the risk to an individual's health, especially if generally shared across the country, will weigh heavily on the economy until widespread, effective vaccinations have occurred. Mitigating the outbreak government strategy is the main goal of government policies. Thus far appears to be reducing or eliminating the spread of COVID-19 through public policy interventions until the availability of a safe and effective vaccine. 37 However, whether the state can attain this goal is questionable. For example, contact tracing is a form of surveillance likely to face resistance and adoption. There are several methods of accomplishing this, but technology-based methods require residents to install an application on their phones. The app tracks all those who have come near another person with the app installed. When someone tests positive for a disease, the contact tracing app notifies any individual that came into proximity to that person. Ideally, persons notified will practice heightened social distancing for some time and get tested for the disease. However, contact tracing must be adopted by about 60% of the population to be effective. As of mid-April, the most used contact tracing app is in Iceland, and even they had only achieved a 40% adoption rate. 38 Additionally, the success of such a program relies on quick and accurate viral testing, which is not yet available. 39 Policies of this kind will not be widely enacted before widespread vaccination becomes available. For this reason, RCG will assume that mitigation policies will have a very limited impact. Individual actions, despite the difficulties in mitigating the effects of the virus on the economy, reducing the spread of the virus, may be enabled by the widespread use of masks. Recent studies suggest that there is likely a connection between widespread use of masks and lower levels of virus spread. 4041 Governor Poland has found that countries with high rates of mask adoption generally are correlated with lower levels of spread. 42 In Asia, China, India, and Singapore all have mask adoption rates of over 80%, as do France, Italy, and Spain in Europe. Germany is slightly behind at over 60%. Unfortunately, wearing masks has become politicized in the United States. 43 Nevertheless, there may be change coming. President-elect Biden will encourage the wearing of masks for 100 days following his inauguration. Current state of the pandemic. The major determinants regarding the future economic situation in the United States and Nevada in the wake of the pandemic are COVID-19 caseload and deaths. Comparing the most recent data on infections and deaths across nations, states, and over time within the United States and Nevada. 12. Better informs the assumptions within the model. This report offers used in the model that describe the best case, most likely, and worst case outcomes relative to the Nevada economy. See COVID-19 statistics in this section. Various statistics concerning COVID-19 are analyzed, comparing the United States to other nations as well as comparing Nevada to other states. A timeline of pandemic-related interventions and milestones can be found in Appendix B. A discussion of the pandemic's implications for Nevada's state and local economies within the model can be found in Appendix F. Among all countries, the United States is ranked 8th in cases per 100,000 as of August 31st. This is made worse when considering that 5 out of the top 10 nations are essentially high-density city-states, such as Qatar, Bahrain, and San Marino. Since then, the virus has spread quickly and largely unimpeded. The United States also leads the world in total deaths. In terms of deaths per 100,000 persons, the United States was 11th globally. At the end of August, among high-population countries, the United States had the 4th highest death toll per 100,000 in the world, 56 deaths per 100,000. This rate compared poorly relative to countries like Germany, 11 deaths per 100,000 persons, Japan, 1.0, and South Korea, 0.6, one of the first countries hit by COVID-19. By any measure, the United States has done a poor job responding to the pandemic compared to other nations, and it has negatively affected the economy, according to officials at the Federal Reserve. 44 At the state level, relative to caseload, Nevada appears to be middle of the pack. However, as a state with a moderately sized population, that does not convey much information. The states are better compared per 100,000 persons. In this case, caseloads in Nevada appear to be among the fastest growing, and Nevada is one of the worst performing states overall as well. As of August.
Okay, I'm going to stop this right now because there's a meeting I'm going to go to, and then I want you to understand that this document does exist, and it's like 93 pages of talking about what Nevada's plans are. But if you weren't involved in the making of these plans, then boo, I'm telling you, you better get to the table. That's what I'll say.